Hello, everyone. We'll be getting started in just a minute, but we thought we would do something a little unconventional. We thought we'd say hi to you first. So we're going to say hi. Becky, how's your day going? We're just going to be casual for a minute here.
Well, my day's going pretty darn good. It's a beautiful day here, by the way, in Atlanta, Georgia. 78 degrees this morning's awesome. And would have been nice to be able to stay outside a little bit longer, but it was great. It's so far so great. It's been a great day. So,
Oh, good,
yeah.
good. I'm in Charlotte. I think it's supposed to be 90 something. And but that's what it does in Charlotte in August, I guess. So, and we were just looking at the weather report for Las Vegas. Not just the weather, but have you heard about this grasshopper invasion?
Yes.
So we're all going to Las Vegas in a few weeks, and I'm like, I don't know what kind of attire you wear for a grasshopper apocalypse. I'm not sure what the dress code is.
Well, I don't have to go to Las Vegas anytime soon, so hopefully the grasshoppers will leave by the time I get there. It's
If
just
I'm eaten alive by grasshoppers, you just carry on the great work, okay?
that's right. That's right. Well, we'll do it definitely.
Okay, well, we're going to go live. Well, we're live right now, folks, but we're going to go forward with the presentation in just a minute, but we're going to wait until the 11:15 starting time that we had announced, and then we will get going. If you don't have a notepad ready, folks, get one ready. Becky's full of great stuff.
Great stuff. Good
I
stuff.
jumped on Mike Westini's call last night. He was getting a whole culture conversation started. That was fun to watch and participate in. It was late at night, but we did it. We did it anyway.
Good
Month end
job.
closed strong for people, I'm hoping.
Well, the culture is always going to dictate what you're doing. At the end of the day, it's all about culture.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get started here. Welcome to Foster Strategies Group's Transforming Automotive series that we have put together with industry thought leaders that you know and trust. With us today is Becky Chernek of Chernek Consulting, and we're taking on a topic that's pretty interesting and creating some interesting conversations inside dealerships and far beyond today. We're going to talk about the merging the old and the new with F&I in order to get you the best possible results. So how do you start to do that? Well, the first thing you do is you talk to really smart people that have been doing it a while, but are still learning and growing every single day. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Rebecca Chernek. Rebecca, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. Certainly appreciate it. And it's a pleasure to be here with you, Laurie. Thank you again for the invite.
Well, Rebecca, after the phenomenal meeting that we had last week in Atlanta with so many great industry partners and friends, it was just so important to me that we get on the phone and on a webinar right away and start talking to people about the very things that we talked about. You did a great job of setting up a roundtable, and what we found was that universal exchange really ferreted out some legitimate concerns that are happening in the dealership. When you are interacting with dealerships, what's an overarching theme that you're hearing from them about their fears or what's holding them back from going forward in the online retailing and digital interaction space?
Well, yeah. And there is that fear factor. So let's talk about what's going on as far as putting our vehicles online, and let's talk about then we're putting our pricing online, and then let's talk about the fact that after we put our vehicles online or pricing online, now we're not making as much as we used to, obviously on the front end. It's become a price war, and so many dealers are very concerned about protecting. I call it the golden goose. The golden goose, obviously, is our finance and insurance departments, um, and I understand that. I understand that they want to protect that department from, they want to stay competitive in that arena. And by putting themselves out there online, the fear factor is, okay, now it's going to again become a price war. And by the time the customer makes their way into the F&I office, literally we're going to give our profits away again. And so they struggle with the idea about how do we best engage with the customer earlier on, but at the same time still be able to maximize our profits, not lose opportunity in that department. And that's where the fear factor, I mean, that's what it's all about.
Well, the F&I departments have been primarily responsible for bringing a lot of profit to the sales, the variable side of the store for a while. But we see customers now on a path to purchase that's very different than it was in the past. So now that we have models that show that people are, in the past we showed that they didn't like being in the dealership. Now they're showing us that they don't like it. It's not just in retrospect, they're showing us that they don't want to be there as long. And more than that, where you and I align is that we think that there's a lot of money to be made and a lot of opportunity in getting out in front of those customers very different engagement points far before the typical F&I interaction. Right now, what are some of the things that you're seeing successful F&I departments doing to get in front of those customers earlier, or tools that they're offering earlier?
Well, first of all, we have to start and take the small steps. The small steps, which, you know, some dealers still to this day don't realize the benefit of getting up and out of that office and just getting rid of this box mentality and getting out there, meeting customers on their terms out of the salesperson's desk. That's number one. Or, you know, just really understanding the benefit behind that and how much that in of itself reduces the customer's resistance to your presentations. You know, people buy from people that they like. People buy from people that are credible. And the whole idea of that touch point, where does that touch point begin today? Is it at the salesperson's desk, or are we now talking about the idea is meeting the customer on their terms online? Now, I work with some dealership groups that really get the benefit behind meeting customers earlier on. They see the advantage. Look at Jim Ellis. They attended the roundtable. Big automotive group. And Mike Powers, as he pointed out, they see the advantage of offering customers with the ability to do some of this self-desking capability, determining their credit criteria, determining some of their payment budgets earlier on in that process to set that customer up and streamline it so that we're reducing the time it takes for them to come into the dealership to pick up a car and to complete the financing process. And they call that the express storefront. So they do see the advantages of offering customers with the ability to do some of this, like I said, self-check, financing and understanding those terms before they even make their way into the F&I office. And it seems to be working for them. But it's, again, it's forward thinking. You know, you got to forward think through that. And you have to understand the advantages to giving customers the perception or making them see you as a credible resource. Again, understand that people buy from people that they like, that are more credible. So in their eyes, they see this automotive group as providing them the information that they're looking for earlier on in advance. The other, it's proven that if customers understand the product options earlier on, the likelihood that they're going to buy more of these products once they get into the dealership or even online.
You know, it's interesting that you say that, because very often the recognition and the reward that our finance people have seen is from keeping that conversation isolated into that magical moment when the customer goes in the box and, like Houdini, they work their magic and they go. And it's interesting because that's a model that's changed over time. I mean, it came to that, and then people started realizing that maybe if we go out in the showroom and greet Rebecca, the customer, earlier, that's good. And so we're not surprised when people are a little fearful of change, but the model that we're working in now is a changed model from the past. We didn't have a box back when we went from horse trading to car trading, right? We didn't have a box that people went into. So I think it's real important for our really hardworking dealers and F&I people to understand that where they've been and how they've been operating was just a slice in the time of finance. And it wound up being a very successful time, but we're also seeing some pain points and some margin erosion happening there, where people are walking in equipped with different tools and services. I want to talk to you just for a minute. We brought this up last week at your round table. The presentation of a draft inside the finance office. At what point do you think normally the finance manager is truly, not in the best case circumstances, truly when is a finance manager becoming aware that there's a draft from a bank in play?
At time of delivery. We're supposed to make sure that the finance manager has what they call turnover in the business, making sure that the finance person has the ability to talk to the customer, hopefully to convert the customer over to the financing before they leave the dealership to go get this draft. So that's kind of like what's been the process. Unfortunately, as you mentioned, things are changing up. Customers can obviously obtain financing even before they make their way into the dealership, right? So they're able to do that. So this is why, again, I share with my dealers is, how do we make that stop? How do we get ahead of that? Meeting customers on their terms to assure that we are converting more of those customers to our financing. We can't wait until the customer steps foot in the dealership with a check made out for the exact amount. What do you expect the F&I person might be able to convert, maybe if we're lucky, to an OEM, subvented rate, that sort of thing. But it's a lot more difficult to do business that way. So chances are, once that customer gets that draft from the bank, from the credit union, chances are it's a done deal. And it is really difficult to convert that customer to the financing. In fact, we had so many speakers, but there was one that was mentioning, I don't know if it was Dealertrack, I can't remember, and I apologize, but they were talking about the percentages of financing dropping drastically. I think it was like 10%, 12% of finance transactions across the board that were dropping down for dealers. I don't know whether or not it is aggressive, but that's what's happening. So this is why I say to dealers, let me tell you, we've got to do a better job. We can't just wait back until the customer makes their way into the F&I office with this draft and expect you to convert that customer. It's not happening. And you're going to miss opportunity.
As we discussed, many training companies, even us in the past, right? Like we would say, like, here's how you handle that objection when or if it happens. And then we give people all of these tools to handle, like the objection of the check in the office. But that was very often predicated about, this is a checkbook and I'm writing a check in front of you. The industry has changed. And now these shoppers are being identified by lending institutions digitally, and they're getting out in front of you. Hey, Lori, it looks like you're buying a car. They don't say those words, but they just start offering their rates on what they can do. So this transaction and interaction with another person is happening so much earlier. So those great talk tracks and objection handling tactics that we all learned in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s and even 10s, those don't work anymore, because now that whole piece of the process is happening so many days before they're even coming into the dealership. So you can have, what we want to talk to you again, we say hardworking finance managers because we mean it, but we want to talk to you about the opportunity that you have to get proactive through some of the things that Rebecca is offering you and the insights we're sharing at Foster Growth Strategies, because we believe that there's so much out there for you, first of all, to hold on to, and second of all, to obtain that others aren't even seeing these possibilities at. So when those drafts walk in the door, Rebecca, what happens to a finance manager's ability typically to be able to overcome that and go forward?
It's difficult. I mean, once you have a customer walking in with a check made out for the exact amount from their credit union bank, it is tough as nails to convert that customer. Can happen, does happen, but it's not a high percentage. I can imagine that we can talk to the customer about the subvented rates that we may have available that might certainly attract the customer, and of course, any additional rebates that might be included in that offering could be more advantageous than obtaining financing through their bank and or credit union. But again, it is tough. And so at the same token, we still want to, obviously present our products, but a lot of times, again, when that's locked down by the bank or the lender, credit union, you're going to find that many customers certainly don't take advantage of those products as well. And I often liked when I had the opportunity to show customers versus a bank or credit union versus our financing at that point in the sale, I would also offer the customer the ability to take advantage of those products, whether they took advantage of the product through the credit union and or typically our financing. Again, I had the opportunity to show these products beforehand, made it a whole heck of a lot easier. I could utilize the bank or credit union financing, or obviously convert the customer over to our financing. But that's not happening in this scenario. In this scenario, you've got a customer in there with a check made out for the exact amount. It is a tough way to go. Tough way to go.
And as we think about it, if we're really trying to improve the efficiency of the department and the profitability, one of the most important resources that we don't talk about is time, right? And so when we think about how much time, that just little conversations like that we look at it and we go, oh, but I was able to overcome that objection, but how long did it take and what else could you have been doing with that time available? I see you nodding your head pretty quickly there, Rebecca.
Well, time is everything. Efficiency is everything. We have got to speed it up. Now, I'm not talking speed it up to make mistakes. I'm talking about customers don't want to spend all day in the dealership buying a damn car. They just don't want to do that. They don't want to spend all day in a dealership buying a car. And it's just the way it is today. Got to get over it. I mean, we have to do a much better job in creating a sense of urgency in what we do and how we do our business. We have to streamline the process. We need to make sure that the customer's on the right car to begin with, instead of stretching that out, get the customer on the, here they are on the wrong car, to go ahead and put them on the right car, to go ahead and hopefully it all meets with their credit criteria and also their budget. I mean, it is a real pain. And so when we don't do the steps of the sale, when we're not efficient, frankly, it just costs you in CSI and in profits. Period. You got to create a more consistent process, presentation, and the more consistent that we are, I'm telling you, the more profits we make, and the better the customer experience. But when you fly from the seat of your pants and you have no process in place, and you're just doing whatever that you can to put a deal together, I get it. But streamlining that process, be more consistent, have that sense of urgency, meeting customers on their terms earlier on is going to make a big difference today, especially.
Thank you for all of that, Rebecca. So when we think about like some of the things that you're looking at when you're with your dealers and coaching them, do you have any tools that have stood out to you that you are seeing working effectively, where the department is seeing that the visibility, whether it's for the customer or for them, to earlier access to information is actually making a difference?
Well, yeah, I mean, the earlier I can obtain that information, and as long as I'm utilizing that information, you can obtain the information, but if you're not utilizing the information, what good is it? But for example, how many times that, we talk to our F&I people, get on the desk, get involved earlier on in that process, know your inventory inside and out, making sure that if in fact the customer perhaps might not be on the right car, find the right car for that customer. We want to be able to, as I always said, two heads are always better than one. And we want to flush out the deal sooner with the information that we gathered from that customer to make the transaction smart, right? To make sure that, again, that the budget checks out, obviously with their credit criteria, but the sooner we can get involved in that piece, the better.
Oh, I could not agree more. We had a good conversation about that the other day about people at the desk because some institutions are setting up that the finance manager must sit at the desk, but occupying real estate at a desk and actually knowing what that means, sometimes there's a disconnect on that. So always make sure you understand the objective of what you're trying to accomplish before you even start making moves like that. Otherwise, you might just have a really disgruntled, vocal employee sitting at a desk. And, as you're talking, it's just real clear that our finance managers have been proactive in their own education. They have been typically proactive in going after these jobs that are typically accelerants from the sales floor. They showed attributes that showed that they would have the ability to handle these trickier conversations. But I think that we've done ourselves a disservice by thinking that that's a final, like a pinnacle, like now you have arrived in the finance office and now that door is closed to all of these opportunities that are out there, including educating the sales team and partnering with them instead of reacting to what they bring, partnering with the customers earlier instead of reacting to them when they arrive. And so talk to me about how tricky it is institutionally, because we really have elevated these finance people to a different pay strata, right? A different recognition. Tell me now how we navigate going and saying, we know that you've accomplished all those things, but we need you to now extend yourself outwards to these customers that are clamoring for information. How do we do that?
Well, that's a curve. That is a curveball, big time curveball. And it really starts with the head of the dealership. I mean, they're the ones that are going to change the culture in their dealerships and demand certain requirements of their management team. And it is different. And they're used to, as we pointed out in the roundtable, F&I people are like piranhas. They kind of wait it up until the deal is actually delivered to them. And then I think Kevin's the one who came up with that term. And he says, and then, we just get in there and we do our thing and, we do what we do. But those days are changing. And I think dealers really see that, that F&I person, can't necessarily just be waiting for the feed, right? They need to be out there actively searching for customers and being a lot more proactive and engaging with that customer to determine terms and options that would be made available. So for an example, we can talk about, again, I think it's important that F&I really get with GoToMeetings, Skype, whatever, and meeting customers on their terms. And, especially, even before they make their way into the dealership, to assure the customer, address any questions the customer may have as it pertains to some of the financing, maybe going over some of the product offerings that would be made available. But it's got to, again, to drive this kind of change, it's got to come from the dealer head. It just does. I mean, they have to know that this is the direction I'm going in. So either you're on this bus or you're not on this bus. But that's what it really is going to take to make this change.
You use the word culture, and I like that word. I want people to think too about the word just attributes, like because culture may or may not be what you want or not, and that may take a long time, but let's think too, which is a great goal to have. Let's think about the day-to-day attributes of the people that we're hiring and how we set them up for success, or the people that are already in place, and then attributes that we share with them that not just we'd like them to have, but that they are attainable and that we're going to recognize them for those. Because as we were discussing the other day, F&I really is a leadership role, or has the opportunity to be. And when we say it's a leadership role, but we're not interacting with these opportunities in a timely fashion for the customers today, we're missing out on a lot. And as we discussed, we take the approach that the F&I manager should get involved, even from the first lead that comes in to ask anything related to a finance question. That may not be where you're standing at Chernek Consulting, and that's okay, but we take a look at it like, if we're not getting out there and answering the right question, who is? Who is, and where else can they get that information? Because let's just even take the dealership personnel out of the equation. Forget about whether your BDC is or is not equipped for that. Forget about whether that was a good or bad or otherwise experience. Who else online with a couple of clicks could they get those answers from? And I want our F&I managers to profit from those interactions and start building their own reputation and driving customers not just to the dealership, but to themselves at the dealership.
There's a lot of tools out there to engage with that customer. ZipWhip is one tool that, I like. It's a texting tool. And the texting tool, it engages customer has the ability to text into a landline, or they also can text in directly to an F&I person or department, that sort of thing. But it actually routes the text call, call it text call. And the benefit behind that is that it can be properly managed. And so also we want to make sure if it's a sales text, it goes to the direct individual. But if it happens to be an F&I type question text, it goes directly to that F&I person. And the benefit behind that, it's all being managed, monitored, and there's no black hole. And that's a huge advantage. And being able to communicate the customer way, if that's the way that they want to communicate at first via text, whatever, to address and answer any questions that they may have, that in of itself is a great tool. And I'm sure that there are other services out there that also provide that advantage.
Here's an interesting twist you just made me think of, Rebecca. We have to think too, it's been a little bit probably since our F&I managers were on the floor, right? Mm-hmm. And so they're not engaging with customers the same way. So they could still be under the feeling that a text is a way to be elusive when it actually shows high level of engagement from the customer. And I see salespeople all the time going to their managers going, but no, they're on here, they're real, they're talking, they're asking questions. The manager, no, but that's not an email. Like the fading out form of technology communication, the customers are actually saying, this is my phone number, and right now I'm in a meeting, or I'm in the middle of something, or this is just helping me. I can have 3 or 4 of us on the call at one time via text. So that's a great point that you just made about ZipWhip and finance. So finance managers just know texting a customer is real communication, and they're not hiding. This is just what's convenient for them in their environment at the moment.
At the moment. And if that's the way that they'd rather text as opposed to make a phone call, so be it. So that is the first touch point in that communication with the F&I person. What ends up happening a lot of times is these phone calls get dropped into this major black hole, never to be seen again. And so there's no clear-cut way to make sure we manage that. Through this, we can do a much better job in managing all these calls or texts that do come in to whatever individual, whether it be F&I, whether it be sales, whoever, sales management, they're corralled correctly. And if once they're reinforced, it's amazing what it can do. It's amazing. But the whole idea is, and what I always say is communicate the customer way, meet them on their terms, whatever their terms is. Be able to be dialed in to create that sense of urgency that you care and you're responsive. And when we're responsive, that makes all the difference. That makes a big difference. But we're sitting on this for 24 hours. Forget about it. We've lost it. We've lost that opportunity.
And back to text, the immediacy of that and the immediate response. Mm-hmm. I had a very important email yesterday that just got lost completely. Mm-hmm. And then I had another one just this morning as Eric and I were going live. He was like, well, did you see this? And it had come in on one device, but not the other. Yep. Right. So like our technology is imperfect, yet text for some inexplicable reason. I mean, they get through the nuclear holocaust. Your text is coming through and a nuclear holocaust. How are you doing? I'm okay. Like people are responding.
Texting is the way to go. I'm telling you, when we can do texting, man, you're talking a whole different level. The beauty of this is we have to be careful minded about safeguarding customer information. When they
Absolutely.
text in, they're actually the one who is being who's accepting that acknowledgement from the dealership. So it's safeguarded. So it's because we got to be conscientious of how we are contacting the customer from the dealership to, or from the salesperson to the consumer. But when the consumer dials in and they respond, or they, you know, they opt in, if you will. It's
Like I
great.
told you, Rebecca is the consummate professional. She's looking out for you even inside this conversation, making sure you're not just compliant, but that you're protecting yourself and your very good, well-deserving customers. Rebecca, there's lots to do. There are a lot of things out there. Do you think that it's time that perhaps the finance managers are sitting in on the meetings where some of the new technologies and software that are going to be integrated into the dealership's ecosystem, that they're part of the conversation?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Here again, we have all these wonderful technology pieces, and believe me, I like every piece. I like it all. But if I can't use it, if I don't understand it, if it doesn't fit in to my everyday how I do stuff, that technology is going to sit there and collect dust. I hope everyone gets that. I see it happen all too often. We have the introduction of this piece or that, and it's going to go ahead and save the world. Well, it doesn't do anything, because technology is only as good as you can use it, period. And it has to fit in your everyday workflow, or it's not going to work. And that finance person has to feel as if it is a part of who they are and what they are. So for an example, I'm all for digital menu. I really am. I love the advantages of digital menu. I love Darwin. Darwin is a great platform. Phil Batista, he's an awesome man. He founded Darwin. Jeff Stafford, he's awesome. That platform, Darwin Digital, I love it. But, as Philip Batista says, it can be a bazooka, or it can be a gun, or it can be nothing if you don't know how to work with it in your everyday business practices. And that's what I see. So it's like, this is great stuff, but if you're not implementing it, doesn't do you much good. So yeah, they should be a part of this training sessions, and they should be a part of understanding this new technology and not to be afraid of it, how to embrace it, how to utilize it to maximize their sales and more profit, and understand, the changing, the marketplace, if you will, and how this technology, certainly will benefit them.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I really want to see our finance manager start to get a seat at the table, at least the finance director, as all of the technology, anything coming in, because we have to look at that very often. This is done in verticals without thinking about the whole ecosystem and all of the players involved and all of the things at risk for either being improperly used or not used at all. We overlay our 5 E's when we're looking at anything. Is it effective? Is it efficient? So, and those two, I think most people at least nail down effective, and then they really try to make sure it's efficient. But then we add a couple of words that most people don't look at as typically being business words, but they're real important, because now we start to go into the actual user. Is it effective? Is it efficient? Is it easy? Like, back to your, can I make it part of my workflow, or does it wind up, I can do it and it's effective and efficient, but it takes me 20 minutes, or I have to log in and log out with a password. So is it effective, efficient, easy? Fourth word, enjoyable. And enjoyable doesn't just mean like it was like a roller coaster ride, for those of you who still like those, but is it enjoyable means also, is there a payoff? Like, when I do that, does that help me slingshot to the next piece? Or does this get me to more of what I'm trying to accomplish? And then the final thing, is it evolving? Because anything that we're doing, if we think that we buy it and we implement it and we stop there, The product itself should be evolving. Our understanding of it should be evolving. And what we look at, our interactions with it and our expectations should continue to evolve. So effective, efficient, easy, enjoyable, and evolving. You overlay that. And Rebecca's right. When you spend money on things, get the most out of it. Get the most out of it and make sure everyone's had a seat at the table to
Here's what
decide.
ends up happening. Here's what ends up happening. And I don't put the dealer at fault so much, but they'll go to an NADA meeting, they'll go to an NCM meeting, and you have a dealer who swears by particular technology. Oh my gosh, this has raised our PVR by $200. This has raised our PVR by $300. They'll go, holy crap, I've got to get it. I've got to get it. And everyone in the car dealership will relate to this. And so dealer comes back from the meeting, goes, okay, guys, we're going to go ahead and we're signing up for this program because I know it is going to help us increase our overall profits. And they sign up for it. Next thing you know, in fact, their profits go the opposite direction. Because it takes, you know, it's just not the technology. And technology doesn't correct an issue. It helps you to enhance your current process, right? It doesn't take over for that person. That F&I person is still in the driver's seat, or a sales manager or whoever. They're still the individual in the driver's seat. Technology doesn't do it for you. It enhances who and what you're all about.
And this is where we have to expect more out of our vendors too. We talk about transforming automotive partnerships all the time over here, because as I work with vendors and dealers alike, the vendors can't set it and forget it and think that they're done. They sold it to Chernek Automotive and it's a win. The vendors, I'm telling you, by having a better understanding and embracing what is happening inside the dealership and easy to anticipate hurdles and challenges Rebecca has just mentioned to you, vendors, you can make yourselves not just valuable, but invaluable to your dealers by partnering with them to make sure that they don't just implement it, but that it goes well. Because the worst thing that happens then is back to the time that's spent and wasted not getting the most out of the product. You actually may experience brand erosion at the dealership. And then the time you're spending going back and scrambling and doing that little dance of, well, yeah, either blaming the dealer or showing them what else. At that point, then pulling out, well, let me bring in a trainer to help you out. We'll do all of that early, right, Rebecca? And so like when we say transforming partnerships, if we all are working together better and understanding each other better, you all can win. And I think that's the best message we can give everyone. Like, why not set up environments where all of our people are set up for success, our partners are, and most important, the people that work for us and our customers.
Yep. I mean, instead of getting into a system where everyone, you know, oh, I hear you, boss, but, you know, we'll figure this one out. We'll figure out a way around it. And they do.
Right.
And they do. And they circumvent the whole idea behind it. And it happens all the time. It happens too much. And it shouldn't. And there is a learning curve with everything. And so I think dealers really need to be made aware of that. This technology is only as good as it can be utilized or implemented in the everyday workflow with that sales manager, with the salesperson, and or this F&I manager. They have to feel as if it will enhance what they're currently doing. And it takes time, and it does take training. And to be able to properly implement this. Just because I put an iPad in someone's hand and say, have at it, get rid of that paper menu, whatever you do, let's go, we're going to go ahead and increase profits. Guys, I wish it was that easy. It just isn't. You know, it isn't. You know, for some, it's like playing piano one day and then the next you're playing guitar. Come on, it takes a while to get with it and have a better understanding of how this kind of flows for me in my presentation. So, you know, this technology, all great, but some fumble with it because maybe I don't know, maybe it's too upfront for me. Maybe I can't, you know, I don't know, maybe I can't just hand over this iPad to someone and say, well, have at it, go ahead and pick your options, drag and drop and do whatever you want to do. Man, I'm really uncomfortable with this one, Becky. I don't see this working. So there is a training element to any of this technology and how we implement it every day into our practices. Gotta be.
Well, Rebecca, our listeners today sure appreciate the talent and the commitment that you bring to keeping your dealers right on the edge. We're going to make it easy for people to find you, but it is Chernek, Chernek, consulting.com. You can get help like this right at your dealership or right on the phone or a Skype. I'm sure Rebecca will do all of those for you. Rebecca, thank you for continuing to keep our dealerships informed and protected. As we learned, Zip Whip was one that we learned today also. Rebecca, we'd love to invite you back again because there's lots more to talk about because we continue to evolve, right? For those of you interested in learning more about our Transforming Automotive Partnerships program too for vendors, please let us know at Foster Growth Strategies. And we have a lot of programs available just like this. This is one of the exciting things we're able to do now is set up an automotive masterclass series like this, Transforming Automotive, with people that you enjoy, appreciate, and trust, like Rebecca. So Rebecca, thank you so much for all you do for all of us every day. And we'll talk soon if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, and appreciate the invite again. Thank you, Lori.
Absolutely. We'll be talking soon. Thanks again, everyone, and go make it a great F&I day out there.
Thank you. Whoa. He dropped off big time. Amen. Dropped off. Wow.
And why can't I close?